Please be seated. I declare that the verdict is as follows. On the charge of murder on 164 counts, the defendant Lars Koch has been found guilty.
Yes.
Please, no interruptions until the end of the show. I have to announce the following order. The arrest warrant made by the county clerk remains in force as a result of the defendant being convicted. It should be recorded that the verdict is based on the following. 33 judges voted for a conviction, 16 judges voted for an acquittal. For the record, the defendant grew up in a middle-class family, began school at the appropriate age, and after graduating from high school, he completed training as a fighter pilot. He was most recently a major in the Air Force. His life has been without reproach. He is married and has one son from this marriage. On the 26th of May 2019 at 8:21 p.m., using an air-to-air guided weapon system, the defendant shot down a passenger aircraft belonging to the Lufthansa German Airlines and did thereby kill the 164 persons on board. I can omit any further details. They are evident to all of us. The Federal Constitutional Court, as the defense counsel has aptly remarked, did not rule on whether this case represented a criminal offense. As to the legal grounds, it should be known. Our law attaches no blame to a perpetrator who is averting danger from himself, a dependent, or another person close to him. So, if a father who is driving a car swerves to avoid his daughter, and in doing so runs over a cyclist, he is not punished. But there was no close relationship between Lars Koch and the spectators in the stadium, so he could only be absolved of blame for reasons which are not included in the law. Here, the so-called extra-legal state of emergency comes into question. Indeed, the former Minister of Defense, Young, has already referred to this. Such an extra-legal state of emergency is not regulated by the courts, the Constitution, or any other law. Legal commentaries have doubted whether it should even exist. This court, at any rate, considers it wrong to weigh one life against another, no matter what the numbers are. This contravenes our Constitution and breaks the fundamental norms of our common life. Even in extreme situations, the Constitution must be upheld. Its highest principle, human dignity, may be a construct, but that does not make it any less worthy of protection. On the contrary, it is and remains our sole guarantee of being able to live in a civilized community. We shall illustrate this with an example. On the 5th of July, 1884, an English yacht, the Mignonette, was caught in a storm. Some 1,600 miles away from the Cape of Good Hope, it capsized and sank. The crew was made up of 4 passengers, the captain, 2 strong sailors, and a skinny 17-year-old ship's boy. The 4 passengers managed to save themselves on a lifeboat. All they had on board were 2 tins of turnips. They survived on these for 3 days. On the 4th day, they caught a small turtle, which they managed to ration until the 12th day. They had no water, and they only occasionally managed to catch a few drops of rainwater with their jackets. And on the 18th day after the storm, by which time they had not eaten for 10 days and not drunk for 5, the 3 older men decided to kill the ship's boy in order to save themselves. One of the sailors approached the boy who lay in a corner of the boat, half crazed with thirst. He had drunk seawater. His body was dehydrated, and it was clear that he was going to die within hours. The sailor told him his time had come, then he stabbed him in the neck with a knife. In the days which followed, the 3 seamen ate parts of the boy's body and drank his blood. On the 4th day after the deed, the 3 survivors were rescued and brought back to London by passengers on a passing ship. The authorities had the seamen arrested. The captain came forward as a witness. The case went down in legal history under the title, The Queen versus Dudley and Stevens. That was the name of the two sailors. The sole question at the trial, very similar to our own case, was, were the seamen allowed to kill the ship's boy in order to save their own lives? 3 lives against 1. The judge came straight to the point. In his judgment, he said, the prisoners were subject to terrible temptation, to sufferings which might break down the bodily power of the strongest man and try the conscience of the best. But by what measures is the comparative value of lives to be measured? And he went on to say, is it to be strength or intellect or what? In this case, the weakest, the youngest, the most unresisting was chosen. Was it more necessary to kill him than one of the grown men? The answer must always be no. The judge sentenced the seamen to death for murder, but recommended that they be pardoned. They were released after serving 6 months. The judgment contains some of the most wonderful words which the court stands by to this day, 130 years later. We are often compelled to set up standards we cannot reach ourselves and to lay down rules which we could not ourselves satisfy. But a man has no right to declare temptation to be an excuse, though he might himself have yielded to it, nor allow compassion for the criminal to change or weaken in any manner the legal definition of the crime. The court has no doubt that the defendant made a serious effort and used the full powers of his conscience in making the correct decision. It is a tragedy that he failed. But we cannot allow this failure to set a precedent. The passengers on the Lufthansa aircraft were the helpless victims, not only of the terrorists, but also of Lars Koch. They were killed. Their dignity, their inalienable rights, their entire human existence were all ignored. Human beings are not objects. Their lives cannot be measured in numbers. They are not subordinate to the laws of the market. Today's verdict in this court should also be understood as a renewed warning of the terrible dangers created by violating the fundamental values of our Constitution. The defendant has therefore been found guilty. This trial is now closed. The lay judges are released with their duties with our thanks.